Hey everyone, as you can probably tell by how I sound, I'm not at my main workstation. I'm out of town. However, thanks to the help of a good friend here, I can't help but not make a video about this subject because of what it means to me and what I feel like some people have neglected to mention or talk about in the Stop Killing Games movement. So please excuse the lower quality of everything. I promise my next video will be much better. In case you've been under a rock lately or haven't heard of Stop Killing Games, despite all the videos on it having popped up recently, I'll quickly give you the best rundown that I can give on what it is exactly. Stop Killing Games is as it sounds, pushing for the end of destruction or shutdown of many different video games, often those that have been around for a very long time. The goal of the movement is to simply solve this issue fairly, logically, legislatively, and just allowing for those who have owned the games they've played or purchased at one point in time to continue to own and play those games, however they see fit, one way or the other, even past the game's end of life. There's a lot of challenges to this movement, namely in regards to online games in particular, since sometimes SDK materials is needed or some proprietary software licenses have to be acquired to keep these games going, or even the cost of the servers and maintenance needed to be maintained to run said games. Understandably, this isn't an easy task or problem to solve, and it doesn't help that it appears that this movement is being lobbied against now, further creating friction that was already unnecessarily brought in by others in the industry. But I am starting to get way ahead of myself here, so let me just mention real quick that this is bigger than just games. This is a consumer rights issue, more so than just being able to play a game you once played religiously back when you were younger and had the free time. Maybe you have heard of the 2014 title, The Crew, being shut down. It was an online open-world racing game where you drove around racing. It was essentially an MMO, technically, and despite it getting not the best review scores at the time, nor many by gamers alike, it still sold fairly well and had a small but seemingly dedicated player base. Around last year, the game's servers got shut down, meaning you could no longer play the game anymore. There is no offline mode or anything like that. Ubisoft even had the audacity to rip the game licenses from players' hands on their game service app, Ubisoft Connect. Yeah, not cool. This was a title that required an always online connection in order to be played, meaning even if in a single player mode where you played against bots or just by yourself, you need to be connected to the internet regardless. Now, despite the poor design in the game's end of life, realistically it wouldn't be too hard to create a patch to this game to allow it to run locally on a player system, or even just connect peer-to-peer based, in allowing those who still pick up the game to play it to some degree today. And to be fair to Ubisoft, God, I can't believe I'm actually defending them here. Why patch or otherwise waste money and resources on a decade-old game when you are in the business of creating new titles that profit more than what your old games previously would? To me or you, that doesn't matter though, because if we spent that $60 on a game a decade ago, we still expect that our ownership of that title would be essentially as valid as it was then today. Especially when we go, oh, I own the literal disc and case or whatever. It would be the equivalent of buying a car and using it constantly for 5 years, and then slowing down the usage of it despite maintaining it and maintaining it a lot, maybe getting another one of the same model or newer, or even a different brand altogether, but then still use your old one for small trips or Sunday drives to relive fun experiences, only to wake up one day, get in the car, put the key in, turn it, have the car start up, but no matter what, refuse to go into first. It might as well not even have wheels on it. Some might argue that this is a hard reality that you will have to face for your online games, or just ones that are MMO styled, or that really only can be played online with people in order to get a good experience out of them. But here's my problem with that argument. It is believed that these games couldn't be played or continued outside their glory days due to many factors that I have mentioned before, even with the assistance of the developer or publisher that released these titles out into the wild, giving players the tools that they needed to keep the games going without issue. In fact, if you look up some games that did get discontinued or shut down, you'll find many of them actually have fan bases that re-engineered or rewrote source code to bring otherwise dead games back to life, and even run servers for them, out of pocket, just so that many can play them to this day. I would love to show a ton of examples of, everything I'm talking about with a couple of projects that I love oh so dearly, but I also don't want to take a chance on this video getting a million views out of nowhere for some reason, and increasing the spotlight on the people who basically keep those games alive to then randomly get a cease and desist in their inbox, or worse, a lawsuit. Which brings me to my other point on why Stop Killing Games is so important. There really isn't any laws or rules to this stuff. In a sense, it leads to a number of catch-22 situations where the people who should have the power, since they gave the time and money to the thing they loved, don't really matter or own what they paid for to begin with. Unless a major title releases, runs online for like 3 months, shuts down abruptly, and then the publishers refuse to explain why or refund after selling millions of copies, no government entity is going to step into just any situation other than one like that and say, hey, what are you doing? Why did you pull the plug? Or why haven't you refunded your customers yet? And ironically, major publishers or developers don't see this pothole that they will eventually race and drive into going 80 miles per hour on the interstate. This is something they want too, despite the greed of the higher-ups have, thinking it would be a waste of money to actually think about amending the consequences of their actions, or rather, their lack thereof. And look, I am definitely not the guy for the law on this, nor on the exact specifics on how this should work, but neither does the grand majority of us who care about this issue. It's extremely important we shouldn't be hesitant to start taking action, even if it's something as simple as a petition. It might seem like the issue only really affects online games for the most part, which it's much bigger than that. I feel I promise to get into more about that in a moment, but no game really is safe. In fact, I'm going to give a prime example of why this is the case. If you wanted to play the classic Battlefield Bad Company 2 right now, you better hope you still have your old Xbox or PlayStation, because unless you sail the 7 seas to fish up a copy, you can't buy it anymore. And this isn't like it's not on Steam, you have to boot up the EA app, I guess. No, there isn't a whole lot of information on this, but as far as I can tell, there is no digital storefronts that are selling this game at all. And the worst part is, I can't find a single reason for why this is the case, or a real reason that is. There is one announcement that I found, and it is the biggest nothing burger for a reason for why one of the best games ever made, and a number of them I guess, was taken offline. As far as I can tell, the game got pulled in June of this year, and there is no paper trail as to why it got ripped offline. Now, I can theorize that likely it was due to some licensing issues maybe, which are a separate but arguably related issue altogether, which I also doubt at the same time is the real reason, but this game, while it has multiplayer, isn't always online. It had a neat campaign. It was an FPS title, and from what I've learned, it actually had an online multiplayer scene from what it looks, despite the official servers having been shut down. Now, do people still have the games in their libraries? Yeah, they can still access this game. But what if they up and disappeared without warning in the same way this game suddenly became non-purchasable? This was a game that sold tens of millions of copies. This wasn't the game sold poorly and we can't afford to keep the sale page of it online even nowadays. No. My biggest fear is that this could happen to Battlefield 3 or 4, which are games that require you to use a web browser, which for the time was honestly really cool and kind of ingenious, just to access the single-player campaign and co-op missions, let alone the multiplayer. What are the plans of the EOL for those games? This is a very, very serious problem with no real recourses to answers to, or it can happen to your favorite game any day now. And I have no real segue into this last point, but it is something I've seen virtually no one talk about, and it's so important. I just can't overstate it enough. To a degree, how it is fully measured, I can't say with certainty. This affects e-waste to a point. By destroying these games, we end up inadvertently destroying hardware, consoles, or even history that would otherwise be preserved or used when games are cut off without giving them the proper lines of support in their EOL. If you aren't wealthy or just don't have a ton of money, honestly, sometimes a real cheap or older gaming PC is the way to play all the classics you love without breaking the bank. But when you can't play those games or lose access to them, Well, I guess you have to get rid of the otherwise perfectly good hardware or consoles because there is almost no point in using them now. And now you end up spending hundreds of dollars on parts just to play a lesser and even higher resource title, which you shouldn't have to feel compelled to do so from outside pressure that the industry pushes on you. I could go on and on, digging deeper into the rabbit hole that this is and likely find more reasons and little details on why this is a problem for nearly everyone in nearly every way. But I think I've made my point very well. Right now, the EU petition is close to 1.4 million signatures and ends on the 31st of July. If you haven't signed it yet and are from the EU, do it ASAP. We don't know what's in store for us for this exactly, besides a fight for it, but I know there are plans to go after these practices worldwide over all the little things these companies are doing to limit us from buying and owning what we pay for. I've already seen some pretty interesting stuff related to this being challenged by groups you wouldn't expect at all, so yeah. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. I will put some extra links in the description for some websites, resources that you can check out and stay up to date with. Please comment your thoughts. I will try to read them and respond to as many as I can. I really want to know what you guys think about this. If you like this video, like it. Join the Discord if you want to stay connected. Follow me on Blue Sky too. Yada, yada, yada. And, oh, as always, thanks for watching.